cognitive function of global civilization was born from the encounter between Semitic cognitive genius and the Indo-European linguistic one. In antiquity, the phenomenon appeared for the first time in Mesopotamia, where Sumero-Akkadian civilization engendered what today we generically call science.
The Sumerian people created an entirely new culture heralded by a revolutionary development. The invention of cuneiform script 3,000 years before Christ and the cultural growth that resulted from the invention of a written language was to reach its pinnacle in Nebuchadnezzar's vast empire of Babylon. The new technology spread from ancient Uruk to the whole of Mesopotamia, extending far to the north. It also spread to the Mediterranean in the west and to the cultural sphere of Palestine. Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom extended as far as Egypt and Jerusalem, a veritable empire.
And the contact between ancient Greeks and Hebrews led to the birth of philosophy. The idea of a unity of the world, of universal order, was born following the fusion of Judaic monotheism with Greek thought.
The Old Hebrew alphabet, also called the Paleo-Hebrew, was adopted by the Greeks around the 12th century BC. While Hebrew is written from right to left, Greek was written from left to right. For this reason, the letters were reversed in the Greek alphabet. Here we see the first 5 letters of the Old Hebrew alphabet: the Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, and He. But when reversed, we see the ancient Greek alphabet: the Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, and Epsilon. Note that the original Hebrew names of these letters were retained for the Greek alphabet. The Aleph becomes the Alpha, the Bet becomes the Beta, the Gimel becomes the Gamma, the Dalet becomes the Delta, and the only exception is the He becomes in Greek Epsilon, which means plain E. Over the centuries, these ancient Greek letters evolved into their modern Greek forms. Our English alphabet is Roman, and because the Romans adopted the Greek alphabet, we're able to see our own modern English alphabet in these ancient Hebrew turned Greek letters.
At last, Middle Age Europe witnessed a third revolution of knowledge which created the Western culture. To this contributed the Jewish diaspora and Arab conquerors, both Semitic on one hand, and Greeks and Romans, both Indo-European, on the other hand. The values of current global civilization entered the scene through the Egyptian synthesis of Semitic and African populations.
Eternal Egypt. For centuries, the gods had protected the land. Then the rebel pharaoh Akhenaten turned away from the gods and shook the foundations of the most powerful country on earth until it almost fell. It was Egypt's most glorious era. Egypt had never been richer, more powerful, or more secure. Up and down the Nile, workers built vast temples to pay homage to the hundreds of gods. If the gods were pleased, Egypt would prosper. Akhenaten's father, the pharaoh Amenhotep III, lived in the great religious center of Thebes, city of the god Amun, whose round-topped storehouses were filled with the grain, oil, linen, and wine needed to pay the thousands of priests who served the gods. There was one main industry in town, religion, and right at the center of it all was Amenhotep III. His two colossal statues still stand on the Theban plain. Once they guarded a vast temple, now sunk beneath the soil. All the glory and wealth of Thebes would soon be shaken by a revolution the likes of which had never been seen.
The pragmatic dimension of global civilization appeared through the fusion of European and Asian elements. To this effect are known the early contacts between Chinese and Europeans, as well as the reciprocal influences between European and Asian technologies.
At the center of Confucius' message was a very simple and original idea. He wasn't concerned with God or the afterlife or heaven. I don't know anything about those things, he said. His concern was that of every government today on earth. How do you build a just and stable society here? And his answer was this: goodness was the essential quality needed to keep society together. People are not born good, they need to be taught goodness, rulers and ruled. But it was essential that the rulers were taught goodness, spiritual and intellectual, because if rulers rule with unjust harshness and severity, meting out punishments with regimentation, then people lose their faith in the law, they lose their respect for themselves, they have no sense of shame. But if people are taught goodness, then they have all those qualities, and they regulate themselves. Confucius' vision, then, was of a moral society bound together by mutual respect and trust. And though he was an aristocrat, it was an anti-authoritarian idea, because the ideology would rest with the scholars, not with the emperors, who themselves had to obey that golden mean. Otherwise, they risked forfeiting the mandate of heaven.
The expressive dimension of global civilization appeared through the fusion of Afro-Indian and Asian spirits. It is the animistic tradition of Dravidians, an African population which inhabited early India, combined with the Asian tradition of meditation, which led to an authentic culture of body control, as we can see in yoga, for example.
Yoga, in a nutshell, is to keep the external, internal body clean, pure, sanctified.
I think that the two most interesting places in the world are the United States and India, because they represent these two extremes. India with its preoccupation with the spirit, America with its preoccupation with the body, with the outer, with enjoyment, and ultimately the salvation of the world is in the coming of the two together.